Uh, this is a kind of long video. I hope it won't go over 10 minutes, but because the point is pretty succinct. But I wrote a lot about it today, but I wanted to make sure I had a video to go with it. It's somewhat controversial too. This isn't really a rant. I'm not really attacking anything. Mostly just stating facts. So the main fact that all of you know already out there, at least if you're in college age or you're 19 or you're 18, whatever. The average cost of college in the United States is 37,000 per year per student. The cost has tripled in 20 years with an annual growth rate of 6.8%. That means it's keep going up. There's no signs of it letting up. The average United States student attending public school for 4 years spends 25,000 for one academic year, and I actually cut off this quote. This is from um, uh, it's a random thing that I knew the costs, and I wanted to go ahead and look it up. So the average cost of college in 2021. This came from educationaldata.org. You can go look it up. The references there. And another part of the paragraph, it said that the average student in America spends over $400,000. We're not just talking about, you got room and board and everything else to pay, right? So that's just the cost of college, not to mention in living. By the time, and I actually was kind of under here. This is my own estimate, and I went back and read it. So I wrote here that the average college expenses in America are well over 140,000 for any 4-year degree in most universities. Going to a good college, whatever that is, having to stay 6 years like I did, while you figure things out, is well over $200,000, and for what? So, as some people know, I've been trying to get healthy lately again after all. I didn't have COVID or anything, but after all this, sitting around in our rooms and everything, trying to get health again, and that's a good thing. And I was out on my run yesterday. I did a time trial yesterday to try to establish my lactate threshold. I'll do a video about it. It's really fun. I really love all the advances in physical fitness. It's pretty amazing. The new things like lactate threshold versus max heart rate and stuff. It's really cool. Anyway, so I was out on my run and I was walking. I was like, I was remembering this really weird spring semester. It was my first semester of college. I went spring semester. I thought it'd be easy to break in. I was living with my grandparents because they were a closer drive, and I didn't have money for dorms or anything. I applied to be a resident assistant for the Mormon missionaries, and eventually got that and was able to live on campus. Blah blah blah. But at the time, I was like going to this class, and it was a 3 credit hour class for 2 months during the summer semester. I want to say it was 2 months. It might have been three. And sometimes they call them trimesters. I can't remember. But I got doing the math. I mean, if the per credit hour, I easily spent over $2,000 on that one class, and the only thing they had us do, um, was was go run and report back. So, it's like if I had gotten a gym membership, and I had, I would go on to do triathlon training on my own. If I'd spent any of that amount of time on my own and used that money, it would have been much better. Nobody thought about anything about it, and there was a whole. I think I made a video sort of already about this. Um, I don't remember if I did. I remember telling this story earlier, but it's kind of related to whether I would go to college again, so it's worth repeating. So anyway, I was asking myself about this cost. So I was like, the cost of college. I was like, this is insane. This is insane. I was like, on my run, I was like just walking and enjoying the world all around, and and just how nice it was. I was like, nobody needs to. I don't have to sign up for a 3 or 2 credit hour class to prove that I can maintain my physical fitness. And they're like, well, it's establishing good habits. Yeah, but that's not worth $2,000, and this is the craziness that we have in American universities, is that we just accept. Now, if it was a really hard calculus or chemistry class, you'd be like, yeah, you're paying for that education. You're really not. You're sitting in an auditorium with 400 to 500 people, and you get no FaceTime with the person, the lecturer is performing up there. You might get some time and access with, if you go to the lab, or if you do what I did, which was totally a stroke of luck. Is I took the honors. Somebody told me on the side, they said that you actually get better grades in the honors program because they're smaller classes, you have more direct access, and they're more liberal teachers, so they tend to give grades easier. It's totally true. I knocked it out of the park. It was great. It's one of my best experiences too, by the way, is doing that. So I mean, I talk about my college experience in lots of other places, but so it was that. I mean, I loved my college experience. Was it worth even the money I paid for it in 94 or so? No. It wasn't. It wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth it. So what would I do instead? If I were 18 or 19, I get asked sometimes this question because I deal with lots of young people. Um, there are statistics out there that say you should still go to college because you're going to make more money overall. I still wouldn't go. But I'm asking you, this is me pretending you're asking me the question, what would you do if you were 18 or 19? I would not go to college. I'm just going to say it definitively. If I had to make a choice, I would do something like a Snowden. So let me just delineate what that is really quickly. And you can read the whole thing if you want. If you really want to read it. Yeah, college costs, they just simply aren't worth it. I didn't write this here, but I've written it in other places. The reason you go to college we've broken this down before, but the reason you go to college is for four purposes. You go there to learn a trade. You go there to discover yourself. You go there to meet other people, and you go there to learn to do your own laundry. And any of those four things can be done on your own. And I actually came to that conclusion after a lot of thinking about it with my college age son and some others, and some people. It's like, why are we doing this? It just so happens to be really convenient that all of those things are included in college. And college can be a great experience, but it's just too expensive. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth paying the money. And unless you go, you're going to miss the parties. Oh no, but you know what? There's parties other places. So this morning I was drinking coffee in the very early morning. I was like, I just put these thoughts down. And I want to kind of imagine if I were 19 again today, what my plan would be. Because I'll tell you what, when I was 18 or 19, I did not know what my plan was. It was hard. It was hard to think about what I was going to do. I didn't have a lot of direction. And so, having grown up and watched lots of people go through that step, as well as me having a lot more insight into it now, I feel a lot stronger. And yeah, somebody's mentioning going to the Army. And this is what I would do. This isn't what you would do. So there's other people who can take different paths. Some people take military paths, which is fantastic. They have great tech training if you can stay alive. And, there's many other paths. This is going to get a little personal, but I hope to finish it, relatively quickly, a little bit over 10 minutes. So, if I were 18, kind of planning what I would do. First of all, I would not go on a Mormon mission. If you're a religious person, and unless you're filthy rich, I mean, let's the other thing. Okay. I'm making an assumption here that you don't have any money. Like your parents can barely get by. They can't give you any money, because that was my family. I was the oldest of 8 kids, that were raised as Mormons, and there was no money in the house. I mean, if I wanted to do anything, I had to go work on my own, which is one of the best blessings I've ever known. It really taught me to work early, and I love it. I love that it happened. But things like going on a Mormon mission in that sense, and I get kind of ranty about the Mormons here. If you're Mormon, I'm sorry, you probably want to turn your ears off. I went, they wasted all this money. Why? So that they could, I almost died. I mean, I was attacked by drug lords. These are all true stories. I'll have to tell another time. Our car was nearly washed away in a hurricane. I did have some amazing experiences. I went to the Caribbean. But what was I end up doing? I'll tell you what, by about 6 months before the end of my mission, I realized the whole church was a bunch of bullshit, because I had access to internal records and stuff in the church that most people don't look in, church history and stuff. And I actually asked senior officials in the church directly. We're talking about members of the Quorum of the 70 and stuff, what was up, and they just had no answers for me. And I pretty much lost my testimony then. But I kept going with it, and I stayed in it like a lot of people indoctrinated in a cult tend to do. I do need to do a podcast just about the church stuff. I really do. Yeah, I was actually stalked by one drug lord who we baptized his wife, and it's a long story. I can tell all those stories if you want later, some other time. We had machetes pulled out on us a couple times. It was just a fuck. Sorry, I'm not supposed to swear. It was a mess, and I can't believe that I spent money for that, for a place that asks you to commit to kill yourself if you will not give all of you ever have and all you ever will have to the church. That is the pact you make in the temple. It's one of the many pacts you make inside of the LDS temple ceremony. And me telling you, by the way, guarantees that I will die a horrible death and go to the worst Mormon hell, because I've given up that sacred information that they have you commit to. Before these God and all of these witnesses at these altars and everything. There's a bunch of BS. I was asking myself whether I should even put this. Yeah, I mean, the Leah Remini. I know. Actually, I've watched the whole entire Scientology. I don't even want to say the word Scientology too many times because I don't want to be attacked by the Scientologist legal team. Okay, because I know what they're capable of. Mormons are not that bad, but they're bad. So the only reason I debated really hard about whether I was even going to write this in here, and I definitely am, because when you are at that teenage age, particularly at the age where you're about to go out on your own, you are going to make some really serious decisions about who you are. And so, this is beyond education, right? But it affects everything. So this is the time to grow some courage and find out what you are about. Tell your parents to shut up and be thankful for them. Don't be disrespectful, but have them set aside and have you find your own way. Because if you choose to go on a Christian mission or any mission, maybe you have, this isn't just Christianity. This is every religion. And some people have very, specific, maybe you have a very strong military family that says you are going to this thing and you're going to do this. It's your life. Okay. So the reason I put this in is if I had had the courage to act on what I knew, first of all, if I'd been told the truth, which I didn't find out until I had already invested all of my parents' money for 2 years, and not to mention 10% of my income for my entire life. If I had known these things before I went on a mission, I wouldn't have went. I just wouldn't have went. I would have stayed away. There was a lot of pressure and stuff, but it's just done. So was it a great world experience? Everybody talks about, yes, despite all of this, Tal Bachman, by the way, is an artist. He's a musician. He has a lot to say about this. He's very vocal about this. He left the church over this. And so the reason I'm putting this here is not to bag on religion, is for you to find your own way and to make sure you don't waste time spending money on that. Did I learn to live on my own? And yes, of course I did, but I could have went anywhere, I could have went just, I could have just traveled the world, for some reason, because it was all organized for me. I thought, oh, let's be safer and I'll be more careful. I still had crippling culture shock. If you don't know what that is, if you've never experienced culture shock, I imagine somebody listening to me right now knows what I'm talking about. The first time, when you're a young person, the first time you leave your culture and you get embedded in another culture, could be even Italy, for God's sake. It doesn't have to be something incredibly foreign. Culture shock is a very real psychological thing, and you have got to learn to get over it, and it's a big part of growing up and becoming a citizen of the world, frankly. So you still need to get over those things, and I still think traveling abroad and doing those kind of things are a good thing, and I could suggest some stuff here. So let's move on from the sort of slamming religious experiences and wasting money on it to something else. There's a comment. I was raised Catholic. I went on various missions, but they were extremely tame compared to the things that I went through. Yeah, and going abroad and doing something if I had to do over again, I would have done Peace Corps. Now, I know Peace Corps can be dangerous, but Peace Corps is very well organized from what I've heard. And so I could have, the whole time I was on my mission, and I was like knocking on doors, telling people to join my church and give the church their money. The whole time I was thinking, why can't I just help people learn how to build stuff and thing? There's a million other ways you can contribute to the world as a young person when you got all that time, in an organized way that you could that have nothing to do with church at all. There's so many ways you can volunteer and do cool things that will also set the stage for your employment later on, help you discover yourself, find out who you are. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that you can do that has nothing to do with your particular church. In fact, after I lost my faith in my 40s, people asked me what my religion was. I said, what church you go to? I said, whatever one's doing the most service. And the service is a word I learned from the Mormons. My wife says, why do you use a word for that? It's just the right thing to describe, your activities helping people. And you can do that stuff without it, right? So, watch the Joe Rogan podcast. Oh God. There's one thing that I like about the Amish that you have to leave to learn about yourself. Yes, I do. I think that's a great idea. To figure that out too. So I'm putting this here. This isn't the basis of this entire thing. It's sort of about education, but one of the biggest reasons people go to college is this. There's actually a blog out there from a woman. God, I wish I remember it. I can't remember. This is why I started Zealocasting, writing all my notes down, because it was a woman who expressed her gratitude. She's a Harvard grad. She went to Harvard and she came for money and everything, but she said that the best time of her entire college age then was when she went abroad. She went abroad and she lived in hostels and stuff. You got to be careful. People do that stuff when they're young and they're really stupid and they're dead. It happens all the time. So don't be stupid, right? Don't just say I'm going to bike trek through the middle of a war zone, which people try to do all the time. They can get chopped up. I'm telling you, don't be too naive. I was actually really naive in Russia. I'm surprised I survived that sometimes. And I've had operatives who worked in Russia tell me that over drinks. They're like, "You did what?" and made it out, and I'm like, "Yeah." I was still probably staying in high school, so this is something that is a tough question if you're 17 or 18. So Snowden, love him or hate him, he totally beat the system by getting his GED and leaving and graduating early. Now, I wouldn't have done that because my high school experience was phenomenal. My senior high school experience, I learned nothing. I didn't learn anything, but I had a blast. I had my posse, these people I'd grown up with. My course sort of became attractive somehow to women in that time. And I mean, there was a lot of good things that happened in my senior year of high school that I really enjoyed. I went dancing all the time. I went skiing, water skiing, I went skateboarding, cycling, tennis, soccer. I mean, in America, your senior, Germans, for example, my wife makes fun of this all the time. They compartmentalize their thing. They still have those social clubs and everything, but they're not part of school. When you go to school, to learn. You do all that in some social club, and they have lots and lots of sports and social clubs to take care of that. Americans don't. It's all mixed. So in America, yeah, I probably would still go to high school. If I was having a crappy time in high school, if I was getting bounced around a lot because my parents were military or something, then I would probably get my GED and move on as fast as I could, and get out of there. And I would just because I think it's a brilliant move on Snowden's part to do that. He was able to get into college by 17 or 18 or something like that because of that. I would definitely live and work with my parents. So this is something that I'm not ashamed to take advantage of. And people want to break away from their parents really bad at like 17 or 18. The truth of the matter is you're actually at a time, if you have tolerant parents and you have a good relationship with them, and my God, not a lot of people do, but those who do, if you keep your nose clean and do the dishes when you need to, take any job that you can, and prove to them you're not just going to sit around and play games, that you're there so that you can build up a nest egg of money. Because I tell you what, when you're living with your parents and your parents are paying your room and board, you're not paying a dime. Every single dollar you make goes into anything you want. You're not paying rent. You're not paying for anything. And if you're not Christian or you're not Mormon, you're not paying 10% of your income. It's all yours. It's all gravy. So I would get a job as soon as possible, when you can, 16, 17, 18. And I mean, if it's a part-time job, but after you graduate, you got full-time. You can get on someplace full-time. And I would take a job. So I have my stepson's now, he's at Amazon, and he knows it's going to be tough, but he's working hard, and he's like really putting away, the cash, because he's living with his grandma. So it doesn't have to be your parents, by the way. This is actually, I should probably put this in here. This time between 17 and 19 is actually one of the greatest times to live with your grandparents, because your grandparents are lonely. A lot of times they don't have a lot of people with them. They've got extra room around the house. You're no longer under your parents' wing, so you kind of feel like you're going to get out, and the conversations are very pleasant. I absolutely loved living with my grandparents. I lived with my grandma and grandpa. It was and my aunt Nona. If I'm gonna get a little bit verklempt because they're all gone now, but I consider that it was only for 6 or 7 months. I consider that one of the highlights of my life, because I got to listen to their stories. It was just me and them at dinner. It's part of the extended family idea, that the other thing. And they have so much life experience. And so you're trying to break out, right? You're trying to break out. And here you have people who are, 1 or 2 generations separated from you, who have lived through different things. And they are sitting there, they just want to talk. So not only is it a service for them, they will happily put you up for free. Sometimes they'll have more to give you than even their parents can. Because why? Because they're moving on. They're well established. They don't have a lot of contact with their families. And it's a really good time. Parents or grandparents, And they'll work with you. I remember my grandparents lived right next to the mountains in a great community, and I was able to run right up in the foothills of Utah. There, it was really beautiful. I have really great memories, and it was quiet. It was really quiet, so I could hear what was happening now. And if you want to, so look, the thing about living with your grandparents, something like that, and you're not going to bring a girl home to your grandparents' house, right? But we're not talking about that yet, right? That's next. Okay. So until I was able to get my first tech job, I lived with my parents or grandparents. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's no stigma there. You do need to prove to your, I mean, you can sleep over at your buddies or one night stands or whatever you want to do at that age. But then you have to plan and you aren't just freely playing games, blah, blah, blah. So I said all those things while you're there. So this is how you get your parents to buy in or your grandparents. Um, do something. Do something significant besides getting, a crappy job. Work on that A plus certification. Work on the Linux, certified associate certification. Learn how to code something basic like Python, Linux, or basic website, something like that. Get it, get basic skills because you're going to have a lot of quiet time because you're going to be with your grandparents. Then you can selectively go out with your friends and have fun and be social. I'm not saying don't do that, but be organized. A lot of people blow this time right here. They have no plan and they just do whatever. So their life kind of happens to them. That's the time when you want to kind of start taking charge of your life. And I'm really glad I did. And I believe the reason I did is because I went on a mission. So I have to give the mission credit for that. But I think I could have learned it without my mission, frankly. So then what? So after you get your A plus certification, try to get a job for a technical company or store. I mean, it's still going to be better to work for Best Buy than it is to work for McDonald's. And I'm not saying anything bad about McDonald's. If you like it, that's fine. But there's many places you can get a job. Some people, they get a job at Apple Store or whatever. Get a job where you can do that, where you can have contact with technology, even if you're just selling it or you're operating the stock room or the counter or something like that. Some of the skills you'll learn just through social interaction and stuff will play into other areas, particularly if you are not inclined to do that. I mean, I definitely am. I think I learned a lot of the skills that I have because I was a cashier for a grocery store. I was a pizza delivery guy, which I love. That is a fantastic job. If you can get it, it pays really well. But still, it's better to get a technical job than to get a job at Pizza Hut, even if it pays more. Restaurant serving pays lots of money in tips and stuff. And it's fun and you can hang out with a crowd and everything. Maybe that's your thing. That's fine. But if you can get a technical job doing that, it's better because the tech job kind of pushes you forward better, gives you more value long term. So while you're there, I would focus on the A plus certification. This is a 180-degree turnaround for me to recommend it. I hate the A plus certification. I honestly, it is horrible. It's run by a company that's trying to take down the industry and monopolize everything. It's a stupid multiple guest format. Doesn't matter. The industry in America, at least, has decided that the A plus is the certificate to get entry into jobs like Best Buy and desk side analysis and all that stuff. There, you could probably get away with like a Linux certified IT associate job and certification instead of A plus if you didn't want to. Some people suggest Sec plus. I still think A plus has the most cross, the board value because it's all about how to use a computer. It also goes really well with your insane gaming addiction, right? It's because if you do it while you're playing games and stuff, the people who like to take away apart the computers and build their own computers and network them and everything, that's all in A plus. So you can, all that stuff you've always wanted to do, you can do while you're living with your parents and now you got a little bit of money, right? That's when you do it. That's when you make your own rigs. That's when you put in water cooling, whatever you want to do. You go to town on your gaming rig. I'm going to get to that next, on your lab and all the machines you're going to make. And this is why I think A plus is the best cert to go with that, because A plus is directly about putting together computers and fixing them, all types. And so you'll inadvertently be doing all the work to get your A plus while you're doing that. Then just get the certificate, and then they know you're not just some snot-nosed kid coming in off the street. That would be something my dad would say. And then you can go ahead and get employed, like get a technical job. That's the game. So I would rush getting a certificate as the gateway. Blah, blah, blah. All right. If you're in retail, they might even pay for it. So I happen to know that Best Buy does not require that specific certificate. I asked point blank to their nerd team. They're kind of like the Chuck of, if you know the series, which is really fun. You might want to watch that. Um, and then what I would do, okay, you've got money, you've got space, either at your parents' house or at your grandparents' house. You got a garage or something, and you've got time. So now you're not part time, right? You're not doing homework and this. This is you. This is what you're doing, right? And you're going out on the weekends, having fun, dancing, meeting people. Don't do anything stupid. Don't get anybody pregnant. Don't don't catch a disease. I mean, don't be stupid at that age. It's super easy to be stupid. And I mean, if you do, I mean, you want to destroy the rest of your life, get somebody pregnant. you know, there's nothing wrong with falling in love and getting married. And even if you don't want to get married, whatever you want to do what you want to do. That's fine. But don't do it unless it's part of the plan. It's really easy to do things that aren't in the plan right at that time. I know because I made some mistakes during the time. I didn't get anybody pregnant, but there's things I would have done differently. Um, a cloud provider certificate would be great as well. Some people are commenting here. I'm going to get to your comments in just a second. I want to finish this kind of long. So I would learn. So now, okay. So here I'm setting the stage for you. Imagine region with parents or grandparents. You've got space in the garage, in the basement. There's space that's not being used. I guarantee it. And now what are you doing? Now you're building out your gaming rig on Windows. You're using AirPlus skills. Now you're building out you're building out a Linux server, and you're saying, hey grandma, is this computer over here, you're going to use it anymore? Oh, it's got our taxes on it. We don't need it anymore. Will you wipe it and take care of it for us? Yeah. Can I have it when you're done? Sure. There's a perfect Linux server for you. You don't have to pay a dime. Okay. I guarantee you can find a Linux server without paying any money. So get yourself a Linux server, workstation, tower, build it in the corner. Maybe help your parents, your grandparents pay for a better internet connection. Run a little thing. Maybe get into the hacking a little bit. That's the time to do it because hacking is very educational. And you're learning how things are working, everything, and you're in exploratory mode, right? You're trying to figure out how tech works. And then what? You build yourself a laptop. Build yourself a Linux laptop, lightweight, some sort of Acer or something. It doesn't have to have GPU or gaming capability because why? It's for you to get business done. You're either hacking or coding or you're researching. You're not using it for its GPU, right? You can but invest all that money into like a kick-ass gaming tower, and then do gaming, maybe stream even, but don't get caught up too much in that. Super easy to do at that point, at that age. I see it all the time. It's all over Twitch. You can watch. Probably 70% of Twitch is people who get caught up too much in gaming. Don't get caught up too much in it. Says the guy who's going to go play Dota. But make a balance of it. Have fun with it. Let it drive you to do other things. And and be careful not to put Linux and Windows on the same machine unless you really want to. I think it's a bad idea. I wouldn't do that. It's a waste of time. Particularly because you can put Linux on a laptop and be just fine, or access it on your server from your Windows machine using SSH or containers or anything. And not to mention that you'll be learning A+ skills, which require you to know like all three major OSs. So that's what I recommend. Get some Raspberry Pis. This is the time to start. Oh, also make your own Ethernet cables. Get the tools to do it. It doesn't take that hard. Make your own, hardwired network connection. Buy a router. Do all this crazy stuff because you have time. You can put the music on, put the tunes on, and maybe have a friend come over and just go to town. You don't have to. You can just incrementally add to your lab, and you're not paying a rent, right? So that's the next step. So you learn to code. So this is the time to start learning to code if you can, among all the other things you're doing. I suggest the languages here. I think ultimately the best languages to learn that are most employable are Go, C, Python, and Web. Rust is a good language for some things, but it's not employable right now. It might be employable later. PowerShell and Python, I would definitely learn PowerShell. I need to myself learn PowerShell. It is if you're going to do anything with Windows, including hack it, you got to know it. So it's just a time, layer on some of those coding skills, right? There's not going to be a certification for coding. There never is. The certification for coding, figuratively, is GitHub. You're going to put code in GitHub. You're going to commit to GitHub. You're going to do all that stuff, and that's going to prove you know how to code. The stuff that's going to get you in the door is going to be the certs that are about to on the operations side. See, what you're doing here is you're building skills on both sides of the fence in ops and apps. So then in any major enterprise in the world, there's going to be software development and there's going to be operations. Apps and ops, and you need to build both of those skills. Now, if you might end up deciding you want to go one way or another. Those two personas are kind of captured in Guilfoyle and Dinesh, if you like the Silicon Valley series. Dinesh is, kind of a prima donna software developer, and Guilfoyle is primarily, a full stack engineer. In other words, he does everything. He makes his own cables. He makes his own computers. He also codes better than Dinesh. So, that's why I think you should stay balanced. A lot of people here would spend a lot of time just writing code. I don't. I think that's fine, but it might be a different path. After certifying, I would get a better tech job as soon as possible. So find where you can go next. You're going to get a good job. So yeah, you're gonna be getting a good job that's going to pay you directly for your expertise with A+, and you're going to tell them about your lab and everything you've done and built, and they're going to say, "Oh my God, this is a very hungry individual who's decided their path in life. They know what they want to do, which just happens to not be college." You're going to need to make sure that they understand why you didn't go to college. And there's many people that will take that as a compliment. They'll toward you. They'll say this person isn't going to college because they know exactly what they want to do. If you that will introduce trust with your potential employer, and you can move from there. At some point in there, you're going to have a great big old nest egg of cash, because after even a year, seriously, you can make, let's say you have a horrible services job, right, full time. You're going to make at least 20 or 30,000, probably on the order of 20,000 a year, doing nothing but cleaning bathrooms, for God's sake. I mean, you're going to have probably a better job than that. But the chances of you making between 20 and 40,000 just as a full-time employee, working on the side on all these other things while you're living with your parents, that money, remember, that money doesn't go anywhere. It's 100% your money, because you're still, well, if you live with your grandparents, you might have to pay for food. They'll probably feed you like crazy, but there's a good chance you're not going to need to. And they all know this. They all know that this is what they can give you at this time. So they don't resent it, because they know that they're helping you launch. And so let's say after a year or so, you've got a full nest egg. You have an entire computer lab. You have an A+ cert, maybe more. You have coding skills now, and you just landed your first tech job, right? Now, Daddy, well, government, yeah, government's going to take some money for sure. Thanks for the reality check, Strager. But yeah, you're going to have all this stuff that you can take, with you, and now you're prepared to move on. So, I mean, and you have everything that indicates that you can do it. You have the built-in personal confidence because you've built all these things. You've passed this stuff. You have your best cheerleaders behind you the whole time, and now is the time for you to like reach out. Now, the reason that I wouldn't move into an apartment, you can, but what I would do is I would look around, anywhere. You're starting to find out what you want to do. Find a good company that you really like. It doesn't have to be Silicon Valley. Please don't get myopically focused on something in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of other great tech work that pays really well, and the chances of you even landing a job over 100,000 right here is not bad. But your first tech job with an A+ cert is probably going to pay between 40. I'm very broadly between 40 and 100K, depending on where you are in America, anyway. And that, again, you're going to be living on your own next. But if your grandparents are okay with it, you could even work. You could even still stay at home and bring that money in, and keep building up that nest egg. They all know you're going to leave eventually, right? So that's not the worry. What their worry is, are you going to be okay? That's what their worry is. So the money from even being a beginning tech job, you'll be swimming in money as a single person in just about every city in the world. Enjoy it, but don't overdo it. It's easy to overspend at that point in your life. Save up that money. Excuse me. Saving up that money and set it aside to explore things you want to do in world and college later. So there's still some college in here if you want to. This is the greatest. I kind of went overboard here, but this is really your moment right here. This is the moment for you to just really enjoy all the power of your youth, as Bachman says in that Sunscreen song. You're young, you're provided for, you're healthy, you're horny, you're hungry, you're living in the moment. You're learning from it. Just, don't waste that moment, for sure. Make sure you understand how sacred that moment is. It's an amazing time to be alive. You have everything. It's also an easy time for you to get overwhelmed with hubris, because you are now, you get filled with confidence and everything. And it's super easy to overdo it. and to have people take advantage of you, or for you to lose track and become so arrogant that you lose track and become an Anakin. So don't waste it. Don't spend the time from a computer screen. Don't work for an abusive employer. I work for Nike. They totally took advantage of me because they knew they could because I was young. This is the jumping. I mean, I made twice my salary when I left Nike. This is the jumping off point for the rest of your life. Make sound decisions. As I said before, don't be dumb. And blah, blah, blah. Preach, preach, preach. I mean, this is mostly just saying, just you're now there. You're ready to start. And this is an important part here. You don't have roots yet. Okay. You don't have roots. And anybody who's been alive for long enough to have roots, usually up to their 30s or 40s, knows what I'm talking about. As soon as you get roots and responsibilities, that's your path. You don't get to change the path. I mean, people do, and it's ugly, and it's better for you to know where you're going and then plant roots. And you're never going to know everything, so you're going to make mistakes, fine. But you have to leverage this freedom to build your foundation, to prepare the soil and get everything ready, and then decide where you're going to lay your roots down. So, and that's up to you to decide when that's going to be. You might never do it. You may stay single for a long time. There's a lot of people these days, even after they get married, they're not putting serious roots down. Some of them are choosing to have dogs instead of children. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, but there's a lot of paths here that don't necessarily have to be the traditional 50s, described path for us. So, and at that point, now you're working for a tech company. You're making really good money. You're on your own. You're making social friends. You can travel probably because you have the money to do it. And in my opinion, I think you should probably start getting more certifications. I went ahead and listed the certifications that I would get. Some people have suggested some others. You like that point? Yes. Find a mentor. Yes. I was going to put that, I should put that there. And I'm not advertising. As I told you, this is advertising. Make acquaintances with people who have been around the block. With people who have been around the block. In my time, the graybeards, it's a very sexist term, I'm sorry, as they called them, even though I would never call them that today. I would never use that term today. They will be very willing to share their lessons learned. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that are very willing to share their lessons learned as you go. And you'll find them. And you read about them on Twitter all the time. There's people I find that are young that I follow on Twitter to see their path. And they share a lot of these same things. So while you're there, though, I would because you don't have a college degree, I would pack my resume with certifications if I were doing it over again. Okay. If I were doing it over again, look, what it comes down to is, and I go back and forth on the certificate thing, but particularly in operations space, you have to prove that you know what you know. And a lot of times, even if you have a basket weaving college degree, HR department of any company thinks that means that you're grown up and you know what you're doing. In order to overcome the fact that you don't have a college degree in some traditional organizations, I think having a plethora of certificates, which is going to be a fraction of the cost. Let's say these are $300 each, right? I think let's say 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that's, that's $30,000. No, $3,000. Did I get that right? Yeah. $3,000. What? But you're going to have to pay money for the preparation, but you don't need to pay for all that. You can do it on your own, right? So this is a little bit of a different position for me, but IBM, the CEO of IBM has come directly out and said they hire people, they don't hire on college degrees. They hire based on expertise. And a lot of them, she, in this particular case, she's not Ginny Rometty, she's not there anymore, but she went on to say that meant that they had certifications. So I would not waste time with certifications that are not relevant and lab-based, and that's what these are. It's not. This really looks like an advertisement for Linux Foundation, since most of these certifications are under Linux Foundation. I only like them because they're lab-based. I still think they're kind of quirky, but they're way better than an equivalent college course on the same topic, if you can even find one. Women can have beards. Oh God. And then offensive security is hands down the industry leader in certificates, even though they know it and they charge for it. I think their OSCP is like $8,000 or $9,000, $100, not thousand. Feels like it. So these are the certs I would get. I would pile up those certs, and then your first 5 years, I would probably try to stay in my first job for at least 5 years, because that shows that you have commitment and longevity. So if you lose if you get out of the job after, if you show that you're like in a new job every 6 months, that looks really bad on your resume. I'm just saying, these are things that they're going to look for. I wouldn't do that. I would stay there at least a year minimum. Even if you to make a total mistake with the choice of company you end up working for, at least stay there a year. And if you can possibly do it, stay there between, I would say, a year and 5 years. Get all these certificates. Maybe a company will even pay for it. And no company on planet Earth expects you to stay there more than 5 years. Not anymore. It's not the 50s anymore. There's no gold watch anymore. It's all about, and they've said you have to kind of flip to realize your value about every 5 years anyway. So this is kind of the 5-year plan while you're doing all this stuff and you're meeting people and you're traveling the world on the weekends and you're going on sabbaticals, and God, it's just really fun. You might work for a company like Tech Systems or some sort of consulting company during this time that can keep you consistently employed with the same company on multiple different engagements, so that you can get a sense of all those engagements. When you're young, it might be the time to do that. Then the companies, if you do that, you might end up with exposure to stuff that you might not normally have had exposure to because they wouldn't hire you straight out. That you're young, so a lot of times they'll go to contractors. So a contractor company like Tech Systems, I imagine there's others, would be a good move there. I should probably put that in there. So I would probably, if I had the money, I would probably nail some other security certificates, particularly the OSCE, which I really want to get. It's about making exploits and stuff. It's just fun. Yeah. And here I'm just making fun of how, a $2,000 for a physical fitness class over 2 months compared to one $800 OSCP certificate. Just to put it in perspective, why you shouldn't go to college. So even with the minimum real world experience, getting the certificates and knowledge that comes from them will easily get you a tech job as an SRE or infrastructure engineer, cloud native engineer, security analyst, and you will be making 140K plus easily. Just go look at Indeed and look at the jobs in this area. That's what pays. They pay for these kind of skills, and they can't find them. So if you build up those, it's going to take, this is a long-term path here. A CCNA, if you're going to get a CCNA, I would do it when you're getting your A+. It's an entry-level certificate. These certificates this is an entry-level right here. This is an entry-level certificate, but you could do that one or A+. I would do A+ because it has more broad acceptance. A CCNA certificate is explicitly networking, and I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't get it myself. Unless you're really drawn to networking, then maybe I would do CCNA. But this is me, and I'm not drawn to networking that way, so I would never get a CCNA. That's just me. I know a lot of people recommend it, though. So definitely, if I were going to get a CCNA, I would get it maybe instead of, you have to do networking for these other jobs too. This just in the context of Linux and situation, stuff. You could probably get a job with the CCNA. If you're going to get it, I would put it as one of your first ones, though. I don't know where there would be as much overlap. Some of the Kubernetes certificates have have like an understanding about networking. I'm expecting you to learn about networking when you do A+, and when you make your own lab network. You're going to be learning a lot about networking on your own. And that, as much as you don't need to know how to make a subnet or a VLAN or anything. You don't need that to get to the next level of job unless you're going to be network specific. So I don't think having a network specific job would be that. Let's see. A decent background in networking, which you want to be a good sysadmin if you need to know. Yeah. People do disagree with me on the CCNA, but I don't think it's useful. Then again, I read through the TCP/IP Illustrated book mostly, at least half of it. So yeah, I would, yes, it's good to know networking, but I don't feel like you need to get a cert in it. Maybe you should. Maybe we should put that there. You want to put that one there? I'll put it there for you. Come on, you add it to the plethora of other things. We don't have a networking certificate at all, so I don't think we need a security specific one. Actually, that's one down here. So I would get the Linux Foundation one first, and maybe a Cisco certified network administrator. There's always a question about whether to get that or Network Plus, which is the more generic one. I would go with the Cisco one because it's a better certificate. It's not a lab though, if I remember right. That these are all lab based. Network administrator, CCNA. Yeah. So we're gonna leave those for now. Because the posse who's watching this suggested I could see getting it because you do need to demonstrate that you know networking. You do. You might think you know networking, but if you can't, I mean, there's certain things that could cause big troubles. Particularly when you get down here in the cloud certificates. If you don't know networking, you're screwed. And networking directly applies to hacking as well. So I can see that. I would probably get that over the pen testing one. There's the offensive security pen testing thing, and that's all network related HTTP stuff and everything. So that makes sense. Yep. Yeah, I know it does. We're gonna play some Dota later. All right. So even with minimal real experience, Skitties can get you easily a good job. At some point along the way, if you really think you missed out on life because you didn't have enough time to read whatever the fuck you wanted on your own, or to socialize in any circle of people of your choosing, or travel the world without fear of getting back in time for whatever bullshit semester schedule imposed on you, well, if that's you, then you still want to go to college. If it were me, so this is how I would go to college. Now we're talking about, I still think going to college could be very valuable, but what's wrong with going to college after your first 4 or 5 years of education? I mean, of work, unless you've fallen in love and you've got a family and you've decided to put roots down, which you can totally do at that point because you got plenty to provide for with. If you haven't done that, go to college. In fact, this is what I would love to do. I kind of did it backwards. If it were me, I'd quit my job after making all that ridiculous money. I used to live abroad in a foreign country. And I personally would move to a foreign country where expats can live for free and go to college for free. And you have to pay rent and stuff. And then I'd use my money to pay the cost of living, learn the language in the best way possible, maybe even get an English, maybe even teach English. I should put that there. Maybe even teach English as a second language to make side money. I mean, come on, you're a tech person. You can get a tech job if you want, even if it's abroad, and enjoy pursuing a bullshit quote major like philosophy or psychology or world history or Russian French literature that would never ever get you a job. So the problem I had is that I went and got a Russian degree and I couldn't get a job. I did. I got it. For 2 years I was a travel agent and cruise director and stuff like that. Considered jobs with the government. Considered those. But yeah, that was my options, right? I learned a lot of tech skills while I was in school, thank God. And I was able to use those tech skills to get the job that I got, for Teleport and eventually for Nike and then IBM, et cetera. But if I were to do it over again, so my hindsight is this, I would have got really well established without a college degree. I would have got, filthy rich as a single person doing tech work, and it provided my ego didn't blow through the roof and destroy me, which is what happens to so many people at that age. Just look at Silicon Valley. It's full of people like that. If that didn't happen to me and I didn't completely collapse from all of my own, pride and success, then I would put it down and I would go to work. I would go live abroad and I would go study something that had really intrinsic academic value. Like philosophy or psychology, one of these things that really allows me to really dig into a topic that has really deep significance to me, and not everybody would want to do that. But that's what I would do. I would have done it backwards. I would have waited. I would have got all the money, and then I would have had the job and thing, and then I would have actually, particularly if I was single, if I was still single, I would have gone, and I would have been, obviously I would have been 5 years older than the other people there. I mean, who knows? I might have even scored a wife that, because, the older guys tend to get, hot chicks that are younger. I don't know. I don't make the rules. I'm just saying. So, but that's the college experience I might have done. Not to mention the fact that not once would I have exhausted, have unforgivable debt. The problem with the college system, I'm going to wrap this up. I think we're on 20 minutes or so probably by now, and I'll read some comments and then we'll move over. Uh, so yeah, hell froze over. I did play a game on stream. Absolutely. Um, so let me say a couple things about this. This gives you, this allows you to pay as you go. You're not going into debt at any point in the time in here. You should probably get a credit card at some point, but do it while you're still living with your grandparents because you need somebody to help you to do it reliably when you're young. When you're young, you think it's this carte blanche, and then you end up with debt, and then you're really screwed because now you can't apply for other debt things. And so you just think you're just going to punt and then go to college, it's going to make everything well, and then you even get in more debt. So it's better to stay ahead of that. And I actually did. I worked three jobs while I was three part-time jobs while I was going to college. I taught. I lived. I was also a resident assistant, and then I held down a computer lab job in the linguistics department. I had a job in. I was a bike repair person. I worked in a local bike shop, which I really loved, just because of the whole culture of it and everything. And I was a resident assistant as well. And then I also taught missionaries language and culture and, building relationships of trust and missionary skills. So I had no life. I didn't have any social life at all while I was in college because I was working my way through college. I did have a Pell Grant, and that paid for some things, but that still left me, when I left college after 6 years, I left with about $8,000 of debt. And I thought that was huge. I thought my $8,000 of debt was going to destroy me for the rest of my life. The people that are coming out of college with $400,000 of debt, if you have that much debt, you've lost all your freedom because college debt in America is unforgivable. You can't have it written off as a bankruptcy. It will follow you for the rest of your life. And I can't, it's just so sad. It's really, really sad. And unless America gets stuff together, we're going to have an entire generation of people with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt in their 20s. I mean, think about that for a second. That's what America is at right now. If you can figure out how to do this, I'm just telling you, don't go to college if you have to go into debt. Don't do it. I mean, normally education is a good reason to pay to go into debt. The Mormons even say you should be able to go into debt for a car and for education. Well, nowadays, education is not worth it. If you take one thing away from here, it's this. The only thing that the academics and the people of these colleges are going to understand is money and admissions. And unless you go for free, don't go. And that means they're going to try to get you in and everything. Don't go. Earn your own money. They're going to try their hardest to continue to convince you that you have to do this in order to play by the system. And this system is broken. They control all of the things that are happening in the system. They control the prices. They have had all the regulations limited, unregulated. Fannie Mae have now no longer any sort of responsibilities to any regulation of any kind. That's all been obliterated. And so it's just going to get worse. And the only thing these colleges understand is cash. So if you don't go and you play some other game and you get money and you succeed despite that system, maybe America will come around and fix the system. Maybe. I don't think so. I think the people who are entering into this system, doctors, yeah, they're making 500,000. Even back then, my friend who's a doctor, he didn't have his debt paid until his 40s. For his debt for being a doctor. So it just keeps going higher and higher, and it's going to be America's downfall because it's causing people to not get an education. They get depressed, and then they get this is the even worse thing to do here, by the way, is to go to college because your 50s, your boomer parents told you to go to college because that's what you do, even though they didn't pay shit to go to college, and you go to college because they all told you to do it. And now you come out of there with 10 or 20K debt by the time you realize that it was not your thing and that you weren't learning anything and it wasn't get you a job. And then what? Now you've got a division between you and your parents because now you have debt and you have to pay that debt. It's still 10K. It's a lot of money, right? But at least you got out before it was too late. So this whole situation is causing massive divisions between the generations right now because the younger generations are like, I can't play your game. And everyone's else like, well, when I went, it was all a thing. It was nice and blah, blah, blah. And you want to meet people. How are you going to do all that? You're like, no, there's plenty of other ways. And by the way, you're leaving me a horrible system here. Why don't you vote in a better system? Blah, blah, blah. So you can peg me with whatever label you want. I don't care. I think going to college is a huge mistake right now. And there's a lot of people who do, including all of my sons are going to college. Actually, two of my sons. One decided not to, thank God. And he's doing fine. He's finally going to college, but he's going to Canada. So it's a much different deal. So the people that one of my sons is going to college is doing it on a free ride, 100% free ride. He's not paying a dime because he got great scholarship at this university. The other one is paying whatever he can, but I have a feeling he's going to end up in serious debt, and it's going to be hard to help him. So I'm putting it out there. There are other ways. If you're going to go the tech route, okay, there are a lot of other careers that if you're going to go electrical engineering or something like that, you probably need exposure to the devices and stuff. There are ways to get exposure to that without getting the degree, without paying the tuition to go to a full college. I know there are. You just have to look harder for them. So do the extra work. Whatever you do, don't go into crazy amounts of debt. And that's the end of this extremely long video. I think we're probably pushing 40 minutes at this point. I'm going to read a couple of the comments to see if we have anything fun here, and then I'm going to wrap it up. So we had some disagreement about whether to get the CCNA, and I added that. VLANs, you don't have to understand VLAN. No, you don't. I don't agree with that. I'm currently on a computer programming program in college. What language are they teaching you? It is terrible. I'm on my third term. I mostly can learn from free YouTube videos. The problem is that the colleges that actually try to keep up are mired by policy and bureaucracy. They cannot. You look at how fast the tech world's running already. How many times have I had to change the boost every year? Sometimes twice a year. Why? Because the tech world is moving at the speed of tech. No academic institution that's accredited and has to go through the process of changing, curriculum, getting improved and everything. No academic institution has a prayer of keeping up with technology. The best that they can do is teach you the fundamentals, which is what they try to, say in computer science and stuff. And then what? But they're not going to teach you a trade. I would never go to college for computer programming. They teach Java. It's like, and most people know this. They lie to you all the time. They lie to you to try to get you to go. So, and it's so sad because, one of our commenters here is saying that they're in their third term and that they've learned that they could have learned everything in the college curriculum in 1/4 the time. Unfortunately, you're forced to, that's another thing, you can't accelerate it. There's only one college on the planet that I know that allows you to accelerate your pace through the college and charges you based on semester, and that's Western Governors University. I've talked about them before. This is not a plug for them. They also include, for the security branch, they include some 20 certificates in the cost of admission. And there's lots of videos about that. You can go watch about how to hack the college system in America by getting that particular degree. I wouldn't get there. They have a programming one. You have to pick between C# and Java. If I were going to do that, I would get the computer science one, or I would get their security one. And if you feel like you need a college degree, however, I've told you, I would not go to college for tech skill at all. Maybe computer engineering, maybe electronics, maybe quantum computing. Maybe data science. That's a very hard academic thing that you might need a good solid math degree in. And that stuff is really covered well in the colleges, even though it's way overpriced, way, way, way overpriced. If somebody has ideas about how to get a data science career or whatever without going to college, I'd love to hear it at some point. I don't have opinions on that because that's not my path I would choose personally, even though it's very valuable. Yeah, people are telling us how crazy it is the way we pay for our education. Welcome to America. My wife just turned down having to pay $500 for an EpiPen so she doesn't die. Even with insurance and a discount, she still had to pay, was it $500 for an EpiPen? It's the same. America is going to collapse. If we don't fix this, we're in the stage of capitalist collapse, which happens there's a cycle of, I'll talk about it later, but it's true. You can track capitalism's collapse. It has to collapse every once in a while for it to work, because the greed, which drives capitalism and works most of the time, ultimately, epics, it has a kind of a climax, and then you're done. And we're kind of going through that right now in America. Yeah, the doctors with $500K debt. It's a problem for America. Yes, it's going to be a part of our downfall. I agree. We have a lot of Europeans commenting, which is, yeah. Let's see, specifically for IT, in Canada, maybe it's easier on your pocket. Java, COBOL, MSQL. Is that what you're learning? God. Go ahead and laugh. We had like 2 hours of PHP and 2 hours of JavaScript last term, and that was it. Wow. And somebody says here, I was a budget analyst for a major college for 5 years ago, and the bureaucracy was an absolute cluster. Trying to get anything done is a nightmare and requires 10 signatures on a piece of paper for you to know to walk around campus. Glad to be done with that. Yeah. The cycle of unregulated American capitalism. This is true. It's corruption, not capitalism. I don't agree. I think capitalism and corruption are integrated, that they come together. Stragers disagree with me on that, but that's okay. I guess now's the time to argue. Yes, colleges need to stop spending money on administrators and more on tech folk and automate their architect. They won't though, because it's a tenured system. The whole system is broken. Why can't people realize this? It's totally broken. The capitalist education academic system is giving tenure to professors, no incentive for them whatsoever to produce good quality people that are coming out. Some of the professors are doing it despite the system, but all the professors that I know, when you get them aside and you're drinking beer with them, you should hear them let it go. They know the system's broken, and they're already working their angle to try to get out of it or to get tenure so that they can actually do what they want. The system is broken. When the system is spending more on the college football team and investing in esports programs so they can attract more young people, instead of paying for keeping up and integrating their tech and building it more, you know what the problem is. And nine out of 10 colleges, that's what it is. Just look around in America. So I don't know. I think it's both. Yeah. Let's see here. I honestly think I would learn more from a bad YouTube class. Good thing is that I'm an A+ student now. Now, thanks to you on YouTube, Udemy, and Coursera. Oh, that's nice to say. This is not me telling you what to do and that I'm better than college. I hope there's a little bit of tone in that. This is definitely an explanation of why I'm here. It's the explanation of why I created a company that I funded with my own retirement money, to help beat this system and help people through it. I wouldn't have done that if I didn't believe in it. I have very transparent books. I could even tell you about how that's going on. So when I suggest this, I've said I'm 100% sponsored by my viewers. There's absolutely no endorsements going on of any kind here that I'm getting paid for. I just want to say that at the end of this video. I think that you can be very successful, and many people have on my stream. None of them are here right now. There's like 4 or 5 people in my community that are really successful who have had no college. One doesn't have a high school degree. He's just rocking it. So it really comes down to you. It comes down to you and being organized as early as possible. Nothing wrong with the other stuff, but keep it. There you go. There's another one. I got 2 of them, actually. That's 2. I got 2 people with no high school degrees who kick ass. One of them actually got me my job, helped me get my job. Yeah. And is the most technical, astute cloud and native engineer, ran his own company, everything that I've ever met. Totally self-taught. Oh, did you have a high school degree? Okay. But no college. Yeah, no college. There's tons of people with no college. In fact, most of the world's greatest, Steve Jobs never went to college. You could keep going on. Wozniak. You could go on and on and on about all the people who finally realized it was bullshit and said, "No, I'm not doing it anymore." And the problem is that some of us realize that too late, and we end up in debt, and then we're in trouble. So hang in there. If you're stuck in college and you've got debt, don't be depressed. We're here for you. Honestly, our community, whether I'm here or not, is here. There are people here to help you through this. And you're going to make mistakes because unfortunately there's a bunch of crap on YouTube that's not relevant to the working world, or to life in general. So, we have to kind of put that in check a little bit, but, I'm going to go ahead and end this rather long video now. I imagine it's going to get viewed a lot. But this is going to be my way to answer, what should I do? Should I go to college? And this is my answer in my way. This is what I would do. You have to make your own path. Everybody's different. And my path would be specifically around tech and international, affairs and those kinds of things. Those are the things that interest me, but you have to figure out what interests you. But you can never go wrong learning a little bit of tech, because it can help you pay the bills while you try to figure out what you really want to be. All right. Bye.